Hello students, welcome to your WebSeek Academy English channel. Today, we will discuss the lesson Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye, which is a part of your second PUC English syllabus. This interesting and humorous piece is written by George Mikes, a well-known British-Hungarian writer famous for his witty travel books. A note on the writer. George Mikes, 1912 to 1987, was a Hungarian-born British artist, author, publisher, illustrator, and journalist. He studied law and received his doctorate at Budapest University. He is best known for his humorous commentaries on various countries. His early books included We Were There to Escape and How to Be an Alien. Subsequent books dealt with, among others, Japan, the land of the rising yen, Israel, milk and honey, the profit motive, the US, how to scrape skies, and the United Nations, how to unite nations, Australia, boomerang, the British again, how to be inimitable, how to be decadent, and South America, how to tango. Other subjects include God, how to be God, his cat, the CTSA, wealth, how to be poor, or philosophy, how to be a guru. His autobiography was called How to be 70. About the lesson. In this lesson, there are two excerpts titled Japanese Manners and Traffic in Brazil, chosen from George Mikes' book titled The Land of the Rising Yen and How to Tango, respectively. They are two specimens of travel writing. The writer is a travel journalist who presents his observations about the people of Japan and Brazil in these two articles. In the first excerpt titled Japanese Manners, the writer gives his comments about the Japanese habit of bowing and how they manage to respect each other's privacy even though they are living in an overcrowded island. The author shares his experience of traveling in Japan and tries to draw the reader's attention to what is most striking about the Japanese people as seen by a touring journalist. Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye summary. Japanese manners. Within 15 minutes after you have landed in Japan, you will learn that the people of Japan are an exquisitely well-mannered people who live on a hopelessly overcrowded island. Consequently, their living space is very limited and so they do not have any privacy, yet the people respect people's privacy in a different way. Their courtesy serves a double function. They exhibit such polite behavior that their courtesy itself serves as a substitute for privacy. The writer supports his opinion with as an example. For example, he says, one finds red telephones in the streets, shops, halls of hotels, etc., and the instrument is placed on a table or a counter. They do not have space to spare for telephone booths. But any person can conduct his most confidential business transactions, even intimate love quarrels in public and in perfect privacy, without being apprehensive about any passerby overhearing you. The author emphatically says that the person's telephone receiver is his castle. The writer then gives his observations about the Japanese obsession with bowing. He calls it a mania because everybody keeps bowing to everybody else. He remarks that the people bow to each other with the solemnity of a courtier with a great deal of natural and inimitable grace. He comments that though bowing is like shaking hands or kissing the cheek, it is quainter, more formal, and more oriental but also infectious. Then he states that bowing is so commonly seen everywhere that even the onlookers start bowing though not the right way as the Japanese do. We bow too deeply or not deeply enough, or we bow to the wrong man at the wrong time. Secondly, we do not clasp our hands in front of us, which is considered a bad way, or we may clasp the hands in a bad way, which is considered even worse. Next, the writer tells us that the Japanese have a complicated hierarchy in bowing, who bows to whom, how deeply, and for how long. Then the author cites an incident that happened in America. He tells us that in one of the American states, There was a traffic law which laid down that if two cars met at an intersection, neither was to move before the other had gone. The author uses this incident to tell us that, similarly in Japan, if two Japanese bows, neither are to straighten up before the other stands erect in front of him. Though it sounds a little complicated to us, the Japanese manage it without difficulty, and even the smallest difference in rank, standing, age, social position will be subtly reflected in that split second. One man's bow will be shorter than the other's. In many cases, there are clear-cut differences in position and no difficulties. According to the Japanese culture, the wife bows to her husband, the child bows to his father, younger brother to elder brothers, the sister bows to all brothers of whatever age. The author then recollects a sight he had seen in Japan, that of Japanese mothers carrying their babies on their backs in little saddles, and whenever their mother bowed, the babies bowed too. Then there are the bowing girls in Japanese stores standing at the top of escalators, bowing deeply and deferentially to everyone. Next, the writer narrates his experience on a fast train, Tokaido Line, between Tokyo and Osaka. He tells us that two conductors enter the carriage in a theatrical style, march to the middle of the coach, bow ceremoniously in both directions, and then start checking the tickets. Later, he narrates how even an animal like the deer do bowing. He tells the reader that in one of the parts of Nara Park is a vast wildlife park located in the city of Nara, Japan, at the foot of Mount Wakakusa, where wild deer roam about freely. He bought a pack of food for deer. The deer came up to him, looked into his eyes, and bowed deeply. The author states that it was not a chance gesture but it was a proper and courteous bow. The author conjectures that the deer are more imitative, and having seen the people bowing all the time, probably they also get into the habit. Then he says it may be something genetic and is in the blood of Japanese deer. Finally, he ends the incident, saying that the deer, after bowing to him, jumped at him and snatched the little food bag from his hand. In a humorous tone, he tells the reader that the Japanese people who bow with such ceremonious serenity even at bus stops, exhibit flippant behavior almost immediately. He tells the reader that as soon as a bus arrives, the bowing gentlemen become savage-like, push each other aside, tread on each other's toes and shove their elbows into each other's stomachs to get into the bus. He ends his travelogue on Japan with his humorous observations about soup eating in Japan. According to the Japanese, when eating soup you must make a fearful noise, only then will one be appreciated. If the soup eater does not make a noise, his hostess will think that the guest is an ill-mannered lout. On the other hand, if the guest makes some noise while eating soup, she will think that he is not a reasonably well-brought-up European, because no reasonably well-brought-up European makes such disgusting noises when eating up the soup. The author tells jokingly that the hostess will conclude that he must be an ill-mannered lout. Traffic in Brazil. This excerpt is taken from How to Tango, a humorous commentary on South America, by George Mikes. The author tells us in a humorous vein how the people of Brazil drive their motor vehicles. He also records his appreciation of the people's talent for decorating their grey pavements. The author narrates his experiences while walking as a tourist through the streets of Copacabana. The very first sentence is a comment about their time consciousness. He says very casually, "Nobody hurries in Brazil." Then he sarcastically adds, "It does not really matter whether you reach your destination an hour soon, a day late, or not at all." Then he turns his attention towards the grey pavements in Copacabana. He states that the grey pavements in the streets are often decorated with beautiful black mosaics, which he calls a unique type of decoration. Then he gives the people of Brazil his compliments for their talent for doing such decorations. He remarks, "Only a people alive to beauty in their surroundings and who have plenty of time for contemplation during their meditative, ambulatory exercises would take the trouble to decorate the pavements they walk on. He uses a pompous term, ambulatory exercises, to refer to their walking style. One should also note that though here he is appreciating the people for their aesthetic sense, he is also satirizing their sluggish walking style or the lethargic attitude of the people. In the very next sentence, he makes fun of their driving style. He tells the reader that the very same leisurely characters, when they get behind a steering wheel, they drive very fast and are reckless. Having made a comment about their time consciousness, now he says, gaining a tenth of a second is a matter of grave importance for all of them all the time. The reader cannot but infer that the people of Copacabana are very lethargic only while walking and are reckless while driving vehicles. The writer remarks that buying a motor car in Brazil is an extremely expensive event because import duty for importing cars from other countries is very high. In this context, he also compares Brazil with other countries in South America and says, only a few other, poorer South American states are in a worse position in this respect. Then he remarks that complaints are universal, hardly anyone can afford a car. Having said this, he proceeds to say that yet you find an unimaginably large number of motor cars here. Then he makes a satirical comment on the craze of the people for buying cars. He says, the number of motor vehicles is growing by leaps and bounds as if they were distributed free of charge to all and sundry. The reader should be careful to note here that the author is also expressing his doubt or surprise at the capacity of the people to pay such huge import duties to buy a car. Then he explains how reckless the people who drive motor vehicles are. He remarks that it is not that drivers do not care about pedestrians, the trouble is they are, in fact, on the lookout for them. As soon as a driver notices a pedestrian step off the pavement, the driver considers him as fair game, he takes aim and accelerates. The pedestrian has to jump, leap, and run for dear life. In these lines, the author is trying to tell the reader how reckless the drivers are and how they chase people as hunters do while hunting an animal. However, in the next line, he compliments the people for their sweet and sensible temperament. He tells the reader that the pedestrian does not resent being targeted by the driver. He says, driver and pedestrian, hunter and prey smile amicably at each other, and they appear to be saying, I win today, you will tomorrow. In the next paragraph, the author talks about the rivalry between two drivers. Though the war between two drivers appears to be murderous, yet they are good-tempered. He describes the style of their driving. They cut in, overtake on both sides, force you to brake violently and commit all the most heinous crimes on the road 20 times an hour. Despite exhibiting such recklessness in their driving, they smile at you and do not show any anger, no hostility, and no mad hooting. In the next paragraph, he recalls an incident he had probably witnessed in a place called Avenida President Vargas. He says it is the worst place in Brazil known for its crowded and slow-moving traffic. His statement is paradoxical. He says, on the one hand, that drivers drive recklessly, and here he calls the traffic crawling traffic. He says even the onlookers will be contemplating the truly fascinating problem, how can crawling traffic proceed at such terrifying speed? One can imagine the number of vehicles moving at such terrific speed, and probably it is the number of vehicles moving at a time together which makes the reader call it crawling traffic. He comments about the helplessness of the pedestrian who wishes to cross the road waiting for hours on end. Then, he concludes narrating a jovial anecdote. He tells the reader that he might witness a situation in which a man standing beside you on your side of the road suddenly discovers a friend of his on the other side and starts waving to him. He asks him, how on earth did you ever get there? The other fellow yells back, how? I was born on this side. The author narrates this anecdote probably to convince the reader how difficult it is to cross a busy road in Avenida Vargas. Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye comprehension 1. 1. Exquisitely well-mannered people refers to A. Indians, B. Japanese, C. Americans. Answer B. Japanese. 2. What behavior substitutes privacy in Japan? Answer. The respect for one another's privacy and showing courtesy are the substitutes for privacy in Japan. 3. The reference to public telephone suggests A. How overcrowded Japan is. B. How the Japanese respect privacy. C. How busy the Japanese are. Answer B. How the Japanese respect privacy. 5. How does one show appreciation while eating soup in Japan? Or, what is a sign of appreciation when eating soup in Japan? Or, why do the Japanese make a fearful noise while eating soup? Answer. When a person is eating soup offered by a host or hostess, he must make a fearful noise so as to show his sign of appreciation, otherwise, the host or hostess will think that the guest is ill-mannered. 6. How are the pavements in Brazil decorated? What does it tell us about the people there? Or, why do Brazilians decorate the pavements they walk on? Answer. The grey pavements in Brazil are often decorated with beautiful black mosaics, a unique type of decoration. From this, we can infer that these people are alive to beauty in their surroundings. Secondly, they walk very slowly and meditatively and have a lot of time for contemplation. 7. What happens when leisurely people in Brazil get a steering wheel in their hands? Answer. When leisurely people get a steering wheel in their hands, they drive their vehicles so fast that you would be inclined to believe that gaining a tenth of a second is a matter of grave importance for them all the time. 8. Who do the Brazilian drivers look out for when they are driving? Why? Answer. The drivers are supposed to look out for pedestrians. But in Brazil, they do not care for people walking on the roads or people trying to cross the roads. They deliberately accelerate and laugh at pedestrians who run to survive. The drivers in Brazil treat pedestrians as fair prey to hunt and mow down. 9. What remarkable attitude is seen in the war between drivers? Answer. The war between the drivers is murderous but good-tempered. They cut in, overtake on both sides and force the other person to brake violently and commit all the most heinous crimes. But they smile at the other person without any anger, hostility, or mad hooting. Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye comprehension 2. 1. Why is bowing in Japan a complicated process? Answer. Bowing in Japan is complicated because they follow a complicated hierarchy in bowing which they have to follow as sacrosanct. The Japanese know very clearly who should bow to whom, how deeply, and for how long. For example, they follow certain basic rules inside the family. They are, the wife bows to her husband, the child bows to his father, younger brothers to elder brothers, and the sister bows to all brothers. The Japanese reflect the smallest difference in rank, standing, age, social position in their bowing style in that split second. 2. Why does bowing, a natural practice in Japanese culture, look so quaint and puzzling to the author? Answer. Bowing, a natural practice in Japanese culture, looks so quaint and puzzling to the author because when the Japanese bow, they bow neither too deeply nor not deeply enough and bow to the right person at the right time. They know who should bow to whom, how deeply, and for how long. They manage it without difficulty and subtly reflect even the smallest difference in rank, standing, age, and social position. Secondly, they bow with the ceremonious serenity of a courtier yet with a great deal of natural and inimitable grace. 3. Do you think the author is finding fault with making fun of the culture of bowing in Japanese and speeding cars in Brazil? Answer. No. This article is a piece of travel writing. Travel writing is no longer viewed as a product of some innocent curiosity. It is also not an attempt to understand an alien culture objectively. Rather, this narrative should be read as the author's perspective on Japanese culture. The author is certainly not finding fault with the Japanese way of eating soup or their habit of bowing. The author is only expressing his surprise when he looks at their cultural habits as an outsider. The language might sometimes appear to be used for a humorous effect. But, in a piece of creative writing, such liberties in their style must be accepted as natural. If the writer simply described objectively whatever he saw, the article will lose its human interest. Similarly, the author is expressing his surprise at the way the drivers of four-wheelers move on the road in Brazil and the size of the fast-moving traffic. The author is also expressing his appreciation for the beautiful black mosaics seen on the pavements. He is also expressing his annoyance for the sluggishness of the leisurely walking pedestrians. Japan and Brazil through a traveler's eye. Comprehension 3. 1. Bowing in Japan is quainter, more formal, more oriental. Do you agree? Or, how does George Mikes describe bowing to be a quainter and infectious trait of Japanese people? Answer: yes. In this article, the author introduces the reader to one of the most fascinating and conspicuous cultural habits of the Japanese people. He tells the reader that as soon as you land in Japan, you perceive immediately that the Japanese are exquisitely well-mannered. Very soon, you will also discover that the Japanese are very courteous and ensure that they do not violate a speaker's privacy while talking to someone over the phone. Then you come to be a witness to people bowing to each other almost everywhere as if it is an obsession with them. However, the author records his appreciation for their skill and style of bowing. He says that people bow to each other with the ceremonious solemnity of a courtier and yet with a great deal of natural and inimitable grace. Then he remarks that bowing is neither less nor more silly than shaking hands or kissing the cheek, but it is quainter, more formal, more oriental, and also infectious. He says so because, while anyone can learn the art of shaking hands or kissing the cheek perfectly well, it is extremely difficult for a European to learn to do bowing the way Japanese do because, in a split second, the Japanese manage to subtly reflect all the nuances one needs to follow while bowing. They successfully exhibit the smallest difference in rank, standing, age, and social position. On the other hand, if European attempts to bow to someone, he or she will bow too deeply or not deeply enough, they bow to the wrong man at the wrong time, or they do not clasp their hands in front of them, which is bad, or they do in a wrong way, which is considered even worse. 2. Describe how traffic in Brazil leads to humorous observations. Or, give an account of the crawling traffic in Brazil as mentioned by George Mikes. Or, write a note on traffic in Brazil. Answer: George Mikes makes humorous comments on the traffic in Copacabana and Avenida President Vargas in particular and Brazil in general. He opines that Brazilians are easygoing and leisurely characters. But the very same people, the moment they get a steering wheel in their hands, no speed is fast for them. They drive with such speed that one would be inclined to believe that gaining a tenth of a second is a matter of grave importance for all of them, all the time. The writer talks about the increasing number of vehicles in Brazil and says that the increase in the number of vehicles is making the pedestrian's life more hazardous every day. He then narrates an interesting anecdote to give a clear idea of the number of vehicles moving on the road at any given time in Avenida President Vargas. He asks the reader to imagine that he is standing on one side of the road trying to cross the road. He will spend hours on end contemplating a fascinating problem: how can crawling traffic proceed at such a terrifying speed? He strengthens the same idea by another example. He asks the reader to imagine that a man on his side of the road suddenly catches sight of a friend of his on the other side of the road and starts waving to him. Then he shouts at him asking, "How on earth did you get over there?" The other person will yell back at him, "How? I was born on this side." The author leaves it to the readers to draw their own inferences. 3. What aspects of our social life do you think would appear quaint and odd to a foreign tourist? Answer: India is a multi-ethnic, pluricultural, and multilingual country. People of different cultural practices, customs, and traditions are spread throughout the length and breadth of the country, thus making the population heterogeneous in character. But foreign tourists who visit India most often come from countries where the population is homogeneous in character. Naturally, the foreign tourists find quite a few aspects of our social life quaint and odd. One of the commonest habits that might appear quaint to them is the way our womenfolk create patterns on the floor in front of their houses or gates, with chalk piece, colored powder, or flower petals, called rangoli. Similarly, the buntings of mango leaves and plantain tree stem that we decorate our houses with special puja days, auspicious occasion and festivals, and lighting lamps during Deepavali appear odd to them. Secondly, Indians' love and respect for the holy cow and monkeys as a symbol of God also appear quaint to them. Another aspect that may appear quaint is the ritual of worshipping vehicles which are commonly seen during Ayudha Puja. Apart from these, there are several habits which might make us bow our heads in shame. They are urinating in public, spitting chewed betel nut residues on the walls and roads, sneaking loudly over mobile phones in public places, jumping at railway and bus ticket counters and at bus stops, crossing roads where there are no pedestrian crossings, honking unnecessarily, parking vehicles on the footpath, disobeying signal lights, men staring at women walking on the street till she moves out of sight, putting up pandals for private functions on the road and blocking it for pedestrians. And motorists, shoving garbage on the road, pedestrians jaywalking on the road, etc. Talking to strangers on trains and buses, enquiring them about their jobs and salaries, etc., are also some of the social aspects of Indians which appear quaint to foreigners. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Webseek Academy for more English lessons and notes. See you in the next video. Until then, keep learning and keep growing.